What's going on there, folks? Good afternoon. It is the Earthmaster here on this Sunday, December 18th, 2022. It's about 11:58 a.m. here, so just around noontime, California time. Latest quake shows some earthquake activity up into the Alaska region with a 2.0. Notice some activity here on the Earthquake 3D globe just off the coast here of the Baja California region. We did see a 4.1 earthquake coming in overnight there along the west coast. All right, taking a look at the latest map here from the USGS. We did see some activity yesterday, too, along the southern branch of the San Andreas Fault. A little bit of small microquake activity, but it was specifically on it and somewhat spread out in a couple different portions. But a little increasing movement in this area today and yesterday. Latest quake, though, in Southern Cal shows a 1.0. Looks like it's just off the Elsinore fault zone. Some further, let's see, I don't think the USGS mentioned this 4-pointer that occurred. Again, for some reason, they leave out all the 4s that take place out here. It's a pretty important deal, though. Need to see what's going on, and they don't want to show those for some reason. North of the Garlock Fault shear zone, that's going to be the shear fault system here that kind of runs opposite of what we normally see along the plate boundary and the other specific faults here in Southern California. I had a 2.1 near the Grapevine area, about 11 kilometers deep. Also some activity here within the last hour, roughly within that same vicinity of the previous earthquake. Some activity along the creeping segment here of the San Andreas Fault, and also a little bit of activity outside of the San Francisco Zoo. That's exactly what it says here. 1.8 at 7.9 kilometers below the surface there on that plate boundary. As far as Northern California goes, not a whole lot to report. Doesn't look like we've seen anything overnight or since this activity yesterday. All that movement there from yesterday. We had a 2.1 and a 1.7 there. Some of those, some deeper earthquake movements along the southern branch of the, southern segment, I should say, of the Cascadia subduction zone. They've been seeing a little bit of tremor activity here down dip. Let me show you guys that real quick here on the map. This tremor map here is from yesterday. There's the tremor activity when we see that slow slip activity down dip here into the Cascadia, where we tend to see, on occasion, some earthquakes pretty much upstream of the dipping area. And that's what we are looking at there on the USGS map. All right, Nevada, still seeing some activity following that pretty good intense earthquake swarm out here over the last couple weeks. A 2.3 coming in just after midnight. It's toned down a little bit, but a look at the last 30 days of activity shows about 90 earthquakes in this area of the Sheldon region, Sheldon area. It's basically a state line area out here between Nevada and Oregon, and the largest magnitude looks like it was a 3.5. Pretty shallow at about 0 kilometers there. Now, the elevation level out here, I believe, is around 4,000 to 5,000 feet. So that's still not going to be at the surface, but definitely a pretty shallow earthquake activity out there. All right, let's see what else we got here across the region. Nevada is still seeing some movement along the western edge here. Looks like northwest of Las Vegas and outside of the Tonopah area. Some small microquakes into Texas area. We got some movement, some 2s and 3s out there, mostly outside of the Pecos, Texas area, and one earthquake here on the opposite side of the Midland area. Now, I say opposite side because this area did see, well, one of Texas' largest earthquakes, a 5.4, coming in here last week, a couple days ago, actually. It feels like last week, yeah. I guess if it was Friday, it's last week. That 5.4 striking out here in a wealth of oil pumping operation and fracking wastewater disposal wells. That's what these ponds are out here. And seen quite a bit of activity kicking up there. Some smaller quakes as well. This is only 2.5 and above for this area. Of course, there's that 5.4. Now, within the last 24 hours, seen a little bit of activity opposite of the Midland area, 3.2. That one coming in just earlier this morning time period, 11 kilometers deep. And I don't know, should we look out there and see what's out there? Well, there's a couple different words out here that have oil written all over it. Let's see what we have. Well, I'm not going to check on that one. It's going to have to be in the satellite view. So definitely a lot. Yes, there's little communities out here as well, but if you've ever been to Texas, I've been through a couple towns out there in Texas, and it seems like it's mostly in western Texas where people have these oil, those oil rigs that you see always continuously going up and down, withdrawing the fluid from below and storing it in little tanks. Some people have those in their front yard. I was kind of surprised to see that. So that's kind of what it's kind of looks like what's going on out here. Now, a lot of times this is not directly where the oil pumping operation or wastewater disposal well is, but there's definitely some within the vicinity. They're kind of mixed in here with, this looks kind of like an older one, drained. Here's a newer type pond, but it's mixed in with the communities out here. Most of the time they're going to be these little square areas, and you can see them once we zoom in. Those are going to be the oil pumping operations, and I'm sure there's a bunch of wastewater disposal wells out here as well. And that's where we're seeing some earthquake activity today, a little bit of migration, about 10-15 miles or so to the south of last week's activity. And of course that will continue, no doubt, for us and also our children, because the damage is done there. Sometimes it takes months to a couple years for the stress here along the North American plate. Just because it's a ways away from a plate boundary doesn't mean that this area isn't always under stress. Got a lot of stuff moving around here along the North American plate. Got the North American craton here that sits in the center. There's always stress pressed up against this area. And when we get enough stress in these oil fields and pumping operations and wastewater disposal wells, fracking operations, we'll see those earthquakes, and they will continue for the future. All right, let's go back here to the 1 day. Aside from that, not a whole lot going on currently through Oklahoma or the Kansas area, but with this increasing activity down here in Texas, I wouldn't doubt it. We start seeing some further activity up north into the oil pumping operations up in that region. Nothing going on across the eastern portion of the country. The Caribbean plate, some activity around Puerto Rico. Looks like a couple 2s and some 3s. We did have a 4.3 over around the Dominican Republic and a 4.1 within that same area. Both of those earthquakes there from yesterday. South America region got some activity around Bolivia. Looks like underneath Bolivia, 234 kilometers deep for a 4.4. And activity here on the map shows some smaller quakes as well, right around the Chile area. Some 2s and 3s here listed on the EMSC model. Remember, USGS not going to show anything unless it's above 4.0, but there is some activity, increasing activity into the South America region today. And this activity up north around the Charlie Gibbs fracture zone from yesterday, a couple earthquakes, 5.0 and a 4.6, but that was about it popping up there. And around the Mediterranean area, Turkey, Syria, got some activity. Looks like a couple 4s out here. One from this morning. Looks like that's in, okay, that's in the Turkey-Syria border. Looks like that is on the Turkey side, though. 4.7 coming in just a couple hours ago. Some earthquake activity north of the Himalayas into portions of the China region. Those are, let's see what we got here. Looks like all of those were actually today. About 5 o'clock, 8 o'clock this morning. A little bit of activity stretching across here, this plate boundary. That means increasing movement here along the northern India area. Got to watch that zone potentially for some activity. Around the western portion here of the Philippine plate. Some of it from yesterday, that 5.1 that's up here off the coast of Japan. But we have seen some further activity of 4.5 or 4.6, 4.8. And also a 5.2 down around the Manila area. Seeing a little bit of activity increasing here. A northwestern portion of the Pacific Ring of Fire remains quiet. And a glance here at the EMSC model. Looks like that confirms it. Did see a 4.2 listed up here on the map. So I wonder if that's going to be this earthquake. It kind of looks like we're missing an earthquake up here, maybe a 4.2 south of the Tokyo area that should be within this zone. Either way, definitely activity ramping up here in this region. Papua New Guinea, all this movement here basically from yesterday. So that westward pressure gradient here is definitely firmly in place, moving to the west here along the western edge of the Philippine plate and up around the Himalayas, around this plate boundary. Definitely pushing westward for now. Around New Zealand, got one earthquake here that came in last night, a 4.9 earthquake into the Kermadec Trench area. Now, let me give a quick glance here at the GeoNet servers. Let me get off this page here, see what we got for earthquake activity. And it looks like a 3.2 South Island, New Zealand, 51 minutes ago. Possibly off the Alpine Fault there. Looks like roughly about the same place where that 3.3 kicked off a couple days ago. Nothing major going on. That was a 5.7 back in November. Of course, that was Taupo volcano. Super volcano. Got to make sure I put that word in there because it's not just any irregular volcano. It's a super volcano. And to look at the volcano drums today, look pretty quiet. And specifically the Taupo volcano, not a whole lot showing up there as far as earthquake activity goes. So it looks like that swarm that we had seen has definitely come to a stop. All right, let's go to the big island of Hawaii out here, where we're still seeing quite a bit of activity around Pahala, stretching out here in a little migrational fashion offshore towards the Loihi Seamount, but not quite Loihi Seamount there. I know there's another name for it, but that's what they have listed up here on the map. Most of the earthquake activity definitely confined to this region. Nothing within the last hour. Last one was a 1.8. We did see some 3s, though, overnight into that area. And a glance here of the volcano hazards map. Nothing's changed as far as any uptick in the Kilauea or the Mauna Loa volcano activity. Everything's come to a halt as of the 10th of this month, around the 9th to the 10th. And they're not going to be doing any further updates until something changes, or really roughly put out probably about once a week. They'll be doing just a normal, typical background review and update. But earthquake activity, I still like to check these maps here because we've been seeing, since that eruption pause, continued earthquake activity. A lot of this activity around the Pahala area that's being picked up, but this smaller, very spiky, sharp-looking spikes here on the graph are localized to the Mauna Loa area. So there's still something building up here. I don't know if that's just from the pressure or maybe from the possible subsidence. But then again, there's really not a whole lot of subsidence. If you look at the, we'll zoom in here to the tilt meter. This is kind of like the GPS station here that measures the inflation. It's always stuck behind a couple different ones out here. Tilt meter, there we go. Still shows within the past week, and since about the 10th time frame, gradual inflation rates here. So that's continuing to go up, obviously meaning that something's building up underneath the ground. These are not super large rates, but definitely showing increasing activity as far as the general inflation rates here at Mauna Loa. So just kind of standing back, seeing how it plays out. Let's see, Yellowstone National Park. Let me jump over here real quick and see what we got. We did have a couple small earthquakes overnight, very small ones. These are extremely small, probably a 0.1 maybe, if that. A low activity there yesterday. It's probably going to be in the at least above a 1.0, maybe a 1.2. They have not got to that yet, far as the magnitude goes. I'm sure Monday morning they'll look it over and get a accurate magnitude and location and depth. Nobody wants to work, it seems like, at the USGS on the weekends. But that's not necessarily true. They're probably always busy with something going on, I'm sure. Either way, a little small microquake activity there around the northwest corner of the park. The rest of the region looks pretty quiet. Not a whole lot going on at the Yellowstone National Park area. Now the typical space weather site I use, solarham.site or solarham.net site, is down, and it's still redirecting people, including me this morning, to these not so nice sites. A lot of spam sites, and so I would not visit the solarham.net site due to security issues, and they've actually mentioned that on their Facebook page and Twitter. So their site is currently down, but also at the same time it seems like it takes people to these spam sites, and again, they're not too good. I wouldn't visit it until we get a all clear signal from the SolarHam folks there that their page has been secured and no longer a threat. I mean, it's kind of a security issue there to visit that site and have them redirect you like that. So for now, we're going to be using a couple other different space weather sites, spaceweather.com, and also directly from the SDO NASA site. And these guys have a lot of images here. You kind of have to pick and choose through them all. I kind of like the layout, and I will miss it at the solarham.net site. But still, these are all most recent updated images here of the structures of the magnetic fields here with sunspots. And this is definitely the most current image. Regional sunspot here, that was 3163, is now departing the area, and we got one sunspot kind of directly facing Earth, but it doesn't look like a major threat. And those sunspot numbers can be viewed right here, 3163, and here's that one that's kind of facing us. This is a little bit older image compared to the last one I just showed you. The other ones are just directly from the SDO site, which means they're the most recent. But 3163 scooting further to the southwestern edge of the sun, and we're left with 3168, which really doesn't harbor any major threat there for any type of strong flares. Now, let's see, what's this one up here? This guy up here looks like it may be a little more unstable as far as the magnetic structure goes. It's a pretty massive sunspot, and there is a lot of intermixing here of the polarity of the fields. So we're going to watch that one here in the coming days. I think that one has a pretty decent chance. That's going to be 3169 up here of at least seeing some further M flaring, and who knows, maybe something larger when it comes to the flare department. Current conditions there, speed's pretty low at 286, density around 3. So things are not looking likely for any aurora forecast for now. The current aurora threat level, very minimal. We're not really expecting any major solar storms. No major coronal holes facing us. There's a little one. This one right here might, and I put a might here because a lot of times when we see them positioned away from the center portion of the sun, they tend to just barely glance us. So we'll watch this for some updates from the SDO and the Space Weather Prediction Center as far as any changes going to the forecast there for the auroras. Looks like 50% chance for an M flare. X flare remains at about 10% chance here over the next couple days. Not a whole lot of potential there around the auroras. These are the percentages here. Looks like maybe 20 to 10% chance there of seeing possibly, maybe, some activity at the higher latitudes, but not looking like any major storms coming on. No major asteroids heading towards us. Got this one that looks like 2022 YJ. Going to be passing us here on the today, the 18th. Lunar distance, missed distance of just in between the moon and the Earth, about 0.7 lunar distances here, so within that range. It is about 6 meters in diameter, not a huge rock whatsoever, but it's not supposed to get too close to us there. It's when these things go to about 0.1 that I start to really look into it. We had one here a couple days ago, 2022 XX. These are ones that are just basically being discovered. Came within 0.5 lunar distances, and that was only about 7 meters. So these newer, smaller ones are always being discovered. But looks clear for now. There are some rather large asteroids out there, but they're not coming anywhere close to the Earth currently. All right, guys, have a good day, and we will chat at you guys again. And congratulations there to Albert Sanchez Jr. He did email me and set up potentially something here that I'll go over a little bit later once I hear back from him again. A little bit more detail on what he wants to do with his prize, but I'll announce that a little bit later on, possibly tonight or tomorrow, on what's going on with that. But either way, congrats there to our member winner, Albert Sanchez Jr. All right, folks, we'll catch you guys a little bit later tonight with the update. Have a good one. Stay safe and stay warm. If you're going to be out there in the plains, southern plains, even down to portions of Texas, going to be cold out there. Very cold. We'll take a look at that weather forecast a little bit later on. Have a good one. Peace out.